You're listening to Investify, preaching financial independence and assisting investors to achieve a more flexible and free lifestyle through smart financial planning and real estate investing. If leaving the corporate world and jumping into this thriving industry is what you desire, tune in and listen to stories of like-minded individuals who made the leap to financial independence. Equip yourself with the right tips and tricks to start your real estate journey, making active or passive ventures that are highly profitable and rewarding. Here are your hosts, Craig Curelop and Zeona McIntyre.
What's going on, everybody? You are listening to Investify. My name is Craig Curelop, aka the Fi Guy, and I'm here with my co-host Zeona McIntyre, aka Z Money. Z, how you doing today?
I am doing great. Yesterday was different. I'm here in the Smoky Mountains working on a property that my husband, I still get really excited every time I say husband, that my husband bought this summer. It was a new build and it came furnished, and we just assumed that meant it was like ready to go and you don't have to do anything. Well, we were wrong, and it was really basic and it was kind of missing some stuff. So now that the slow season is here, we decided to come out. And yesterday I was so freaking stressed.
What happened?
And
was it
frazzled. No, it was just that we're only here for kind of like 3 days. And even though I pre-ordered everything and it was here, it was just kind of overwhelming. And yeah, I was not handling it well yesterday. But today, shit is looking beautiful. And I feel like it's going to be just fine. So,
Z, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can I ask you a question? Why the heck are you still doing this?
I know this comes up in the show today, but it is kind of funny. I think this is something we also mentioned in the show, is that a lot of times real estate investors that invest out of state, they never see their homes. But when you have something that's a short-term rental, it is really important to see it, or at least have somebody out there. But I prefer to see it because if we're managing, it's like, I want to know where the breaker box is. I want to know how it is to drive up our street. And is it a steep driveway? You know, there's just certain things that help us manage the property better. So I love to come in and infuse some of my energy. But the next time I do this shit, I am hiring somebody and they are putting it all away, and I'm just going to come and fluff the pillows before the photographer comes. All right? So we're going to do this differently going forward.
I'm holding you to that. And then you get a nice trip to Gatlinburg.
I'm learning.
You get a nice trip to Gatlinburg for that.
Okay.
So, yeah, I still have never been to the Smoky Mountains.
Totally.
I feel like that's one of those places where I need to go.
Girl, you are not missing anything. Don't you worry. It is embarrassing that so many people come up here. I mean, there are some really beautiful nature parts, but like I did. But the main attractions, here are, it's like horrific. It's like medieval times and like giant petting zoo and just like a crazy slide. Like everything is just like the worst of America. So I'm just like shitting all over this place, but honestly, it is ridiculous. So, yeah.
Dang. Well, yes. Okay. Maybe I won't go there then. And I'll just stick to the good old Rocky Mountains, because I know those are very pretty, and they're nice as well.
Yeah, totally.
Speaking of Rocky Mountains, we've got Meghan Hunter here, who came down the Rocky Mountains from Missoula, Montana to Colorado, and now she's in Portugal, and she's here to tell us her story of financial independence and how she got from Missoula or Seattle to Portugal.
Not Seattle. Where'd you get Seattle?
Not Seattle. Didn't you say she was from Seattle at one point? Or she went from... Yeah,
maybe.
Small tidbit. Details. Okay. Well, if you guys can pick up where Meghan is actually from and if she moved to Seattle or not during the whole episode, drop us a line on Instagram and tell us if you found it.
That'd be great.
And let's bring on Meghan onto the show. Meghan Hunter, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing today?
Doing great. It's tonight here where I am, but yes.
Ooh, tonight. Why don't you spill the beans and tell us where you are?
So I am coming from just outside of Lisbon. I kind of recently moved to Portugal as part of my fire journey. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Ooh,
Ooh, I love that.
that's like a fun like, is it foreshadowing or like a sequel? How do you call that when you're like, this is where I am now. Let's take it back
Yeah.
to the beginning to see how you got there.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. Clearly,
Yeah.
I wrote a book and I'm not that good with English, but um, so Megan, let's take it back to where your fire journey started and when you first heard about financial independence.
Yeah, so I would say, I heard about 6 years ago, and but my journey, unbeknownst to me, started like a decade ago when I accidentally wound up buying a house that happened to be a house hack. So yeah, roundabout way, but I first came across like the term fire. It was a Mr. Money mustache, as many people have mentioned here before. And that's when I got really serious about investing, real estate investing, and like seeing that as a clear path to fire, not just kind of I need a place to live.
That's super interesting. So it was about 10 years ago. So we're talking probably what, like 2013, 2012, 2013?
Yeah, 2010. So yeah, 12 years ago
Okay,
ish.
2010,
Yeah.
12, 13 years ago. Okay. And so you found Mr. Money Mustache who likes he like Mr. Money Mustache likes real estate, but he doesn't talk all that much about it. And so were you first on the like, oh, let's just save, put into index fund, save, save, save? Or were you kind of like, oh no, I can see real estate as a way to kind of like expedite my path to financial independence?
Yeah, eventually it became seeing real estate as a way to expedite my path for sure. I think kind of connected with the whole Mr. Money Mustache thing just because I was always fairly frugal. And so that's kind of what resonated in a DIYer and all of the things that I'm trying not to be anymore for a lot of reasons.
Mm.
Um, but that was kind of the hook for me that resonated with me. And then yeah, fell into real estate and yeah, went from there.
I want to talk a little bit about why you don't want to be a DIYer because I've gone through the same journey and I think I'm still going on that right now actually because as we speak I am in one of my properties refurnishing it and I'm on another furnishing trip right after this. And I remember the last time I was on a furnishing trip, Craig was like, why don't you hire that shit out? It's not worth your time. And you're right, Craig. You're right. So
Yes,
Megan, what ways are you learning that you shouldn't be DIYing?
Yeah, so that sounds exactly like something that I would be doing right now also. I did DIY a short-term rental furnishing, like 2 months before I left for Portugal. So clearly I haven't learned my lesson, but it's kind of everything. I'm just looking at everything, seeing what I like doing, what I don't like doing, and figuring out, what is it? Who, not how, like how I can
Mhm.
outsource, and just really like always coming back to knowing and understanding the value of my time and would I rather be like laying tile in a bathroom floor or spending time on the beach with my daughter. So yeah, as life goes on, like your priorities shift and you just kind of got to figure out how to work with it.
Yeah, I want to highlight that. It's like as life goes on, your priorities shift. So if someone is really scrappy, and I feel like your 20s are for that, like just be like scrappy, learn all the stuff. Like you can work like 20 hours a day and it doesn't matter. You barely need sleep. Like really do that now and figure out ways to get to your financial independence now. Because as you get older, your priorities change and it's harder to pull those crazy long, work schedules and days. So, do it while you're young if you can, because we just get lazy. Speaking for myself, but I think a lot of people do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can totally second that. Like my 20s, I feel like I could work 24/7 and I never got sick of it. And now I'm like I kind of need a day a week, at least one day per week to just like do nothing, And like now like
Hmm.
the excited like I used to love, I mean I still love traveling, but like now like getting on a plane and going somewhere is like more exhausting than just like staying home and like not doing anything. Like that's really fun for me now. So Maybe I'm an old head.
No, all of those
Yeah.
things are totally true. And I mean, I don't like discount any of the DIYing I've done before because it taught me so much. And now, I'm better able to like analyze deals and figure out if like a contractor is trying to screw me or if they're doing the right way, something the right way or the wrong way, or, it's like all part of the process. And yeah, totally worth it.
Ab- Absolutely. So why don't we take it back again, back to about 2012, maybe when you bought your first place. And so 2010 you discovered financial independence. When did you actually buy your first house hack?
So actually, I bought my first house hack in 2010 and didn't discover financial independence until a couple of years later. So I was renting,
Wow.
yeah, so it was like backwards, I guess. I was renting a mother-in-law apartment and the owners decided to get divorced. So I literally got a knock on the door one day and they said, "Do you want to buy the house?" And they were like, "We figured we'd offer it to you since you're living here before we go to the market. It'd be easier." And I had like zero plans of purchasing a home. I'm fairly nomadic. It didn't cross my mind. But I am decent at math. So, I was like, wait a second, I'm paying their mortgage, so someone else could pay my mortgage. And I guess I'm a little bit of like a masochist and wanting to remodel things and like seeing potential in everything, even if it's going to be like a hellish endeavor. So yeah, I said yes. And things kind of went from there. That particular house happened to be on a double lot. So I um, s- uh, split the lot, built another house, and yeah, that's kind of where it all started.
Z, do you know what this
Amazing.
sounds like?
Yes, it is
Sounds like the
the
for
for
real
real
deal.
deal.
The for real
All
deal.
right, Megan, this is the first deal that you ever do as an investor. You already gave us not a foreshadow, but a preview. Man, clearly my words don't come out too good. Um, so you told us how you bought it. You were living in a place and the landlord came to you and said, "Hey, do you want to buy it?" Now, can you tell us where this was, how much you purchased it for?
Yep,
Did you do seller financing? What kind of financing did you do? Like, spill all the tea.
totally. Yeah, I had to go back through my notes because this was a while ago. um, but so I purchased it for $172,000. I was in Missoula, Montana at the time. Being 2010, I knew about the first time home buyers tax credit during the Obama years. And yeah, I got FHA loans, so it was like 3.5% down. So it was, nothing extra fancy or creative, I guess, aside from the fact that I did negotiate, the deal off market and felt like I probably saved 20K in the asking price at that point too. So yeah.
Hmm.
That's awesome. I want to just highlight the Obama tax credit. So that doesn't exist anymore, which I bet some people are like, oh man, I wish I had known. I mean, I even thought that. I was just like, dang, if I was investing back then. But there are so many cool programs that a lot of people don't know about. And I was talking to a friend about this recently. It's like, definitely look into what your city or your county is offering because there are all kinds of affordable housing programs and state specific ones that do down payment assistance. There's just so many ways that you can get even like $20,000 towards your closing costs. So I want to point that out to people that, especially if you're going to be owner occupying like a house hack, look into the options because you'd be surprised what's out there.
Totally. It's a great point.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. So you ended up coming in with 3.5% down on 171,000. So you came in, probably you bought the place for like five to ten thousand
Yep.
dollars, which it sounds like you were a saver, so you probably just had. Um, what was your mortgage payment on that? And did you rent out the big side or did you stay in the mother-in-law suite? How did that work?
Yeah, so the mother-in-law suite had been completely remodeled. It used to be a garage and they remodeled it to be a suite. But the main house was like a complete shit show. Like
Maybe that's why they got divorced.
well, yeah, yes. Ironically, I don't know, the house is cursed because I ended up selling that to break free in my divorce. So who knows what that means, but yeah, the like siding was falling off, the deck was in disrepair. They had like glued maps to the wall as like a cool wallpaper. I mean, it was just crazy. But anyways, being the frugal person that I was totally willing to move into the main house and do like a live-in, remodel essentially while someone was living in the nicer part of the house, helping me pay my mortgage. And to your question, about the payment, that was one kind of first hard lesson to learn, I guess, in my real estate endeavors. Since I did the off-market deal without a real estate agent, I thought my payment was going to be around like $950. It was whatever Wells Fargo told me, it was going to be. And a couple months after closing, I saw it shot up like $200. And I was like, what's going on? Well, there was a SID, a special improvement district. The previous owners had financed a sidewalk through the city for an exorbitant amount of money, now that I know like how much concrete and sidewalks cost. And so it was this extra payment on the mortgage that I had to pay every month. So that was a bit of a surprise, but still had 700-ish or so bucks being covered by the mother-in-law apartment. So still a good deal, just a surprise.
So you were getting like you were getting $700 covered, or you were like actually cash flowing $700?
No, getting that covered. So yeah, I was not cash flowing at that point.
Okay, so you're renting that site out for $700. Again, I mean, I don't even know if your real estate agent would have caught that. Like, really, your seller should have disclosed that. Like, your title company should have caught that.
Yep.
I would think, but I guess that's neither here nor there.
I certainly thought someone should have, but
yeah,
nothing I could do about it.
Yeah, somebody should have caught it. But that's a good lesson learned. And so, okay, so you're getting 700 for the side, and then what do you do? What did you do to the big side? And how much did you put into that, and how much like blood, sweat, and tears did you?
Yeah,
Did you have to,
majority of sweat equity. Learned, how to use YouTube to pretty much do anything and everything from drywall to refinishing floors to like plumbing a bathroom, spraying foam insulation, tearing out a wall. I mean, it was a solid remodel. Luckily, it was only about 900 square feet, so it wasn't, huge. But at that point in my life, I thought it was fun.
Yeah.
To sleep with like, sheets of plastic flapping in the wind by your mattress.
So what did it cost and how long did it take to do that remodel?
Yeah. It was, 15 to 20 grand. I don't have exact numbers anymore. But it was a 4 or 5 month process. I hired out things like laying some new hardwood floors in certain areas of the house, doing some roof repairs. But yeah, saved a lot, did a lot of the cosmetic stuff myself.
And so after, getting it all done, did you just live there for a while? Did you rent it and decide to go to the next place? Well, I mean, I remember you saying that you subdivided and built the other side. Was that going to be for you, or is it just a rental?
No, so that was for me. So the plan, that was like the brand new modern house that I helped design, with the builders that I'd found. And so, yeah, I moved into that one and then rented out the original home, both sides, the main piece and the mother-in-law, which then it started cash flowing. It had been, let's see, 4 years later that happened. So with rents going
Mm.
up and being able to rent the whole property, it was a great deal to fall into.
Yeah. Do you remember what you rented that other side for?
At that point, it was 12 to 12.50 a month.
Okay, so you're making about $2,000 a
Yeah.
month in rent on about $1,100
Yep.
payment, and so yeah, that's a couple $100 of cash flow after you consider reserves and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
that's not a bad
And a
in
free
Missoula,
lot.
Montana. Yeah, and a free lot.
Yeah.
And so I think you alluded to in the beginning. OZ, did you have anything to add?
I'm just curious about how that goes. So, way back when, like 2015, I bought a place that came with a free lot. And I looked into it a little bit, but it just seemed overwhelming to, figure out a builder and like what would that cost and how do you finance it? So I'm just really curious. Could you break down that whole process for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So finding the builder, I actually was on a walk and wandered down an alley because I was looking at another house that was being built and ended up talking to the builders there. And it kind of went from there. They had a lender that they used. They had built a couple of other, new builds in the area. And yeah, essentially it was great because they kind of fronted the bill, if you will, until the house was built. And then sold me the house. So I did do a small subdivision a couple years later and had to go through the whole loan process, subdividing another lot and that sort of thing, which was a little more involved. But again, like most things, it's just like paperwork, asking questions and finding the right people and beating your head up against the wall enough and being stubborn enough to get through it.
I really like how things just seem to like magically happen for you. You're like, oh, one
Well,
day they just knock on the door and ask me if I want to buy the house. And then I'm out for a walk and I find these builders. I'm like, great. I need to just like trust the magic of the universe a little bit more. I think I'm trying too hard.
oh,
Yeah.
believe me,
Yeah.
it's not that easy. Maybe I need to tell the story differently, but yeah, I mean, I had to awkwardly approach some dude like standing on the side of the alley and being like, "Hey, are you building this house? Hey," there were a lot of um tough negotiations like while the house was being built because they were so used to sort of having their way of building things and using certain materials and I wanted to upgrade things and they weren't used to doing that, so there was a lot that went on, and yeah, but I mean it was an awesome house in the end, so
Okay, so Megan, so how much did it end up costing you to buy or to build that second place, and how long did it take, and how did you finance it and all that stuff?
yeah. So built the new house for $225,000 on the free lot, which was awesome. Instant equity. It appraised for like, you know, I don't know. It was close to 80 grand more, like like immediately when it was built, than what I purchased it for. And yeah,
Mhm.
that was another just conventional loan. So like I said, the builders like carried the cost while they were building. They were super duper fast. It took all of like 4 months. They even started in January in Montana, um, which can be disastrous if the weather doesn't behave. But yeah, uh,
Super cool. That's amazing. And so then did you rent that
no,
out or did you end up selling the whole thing?
no. So lived there for another 4 years and eventually sold both of those pieces of property when I moved to Colorado in
Mm.
2019-ish.
Okay. And did those two properties make you financially independent? Like, were you financially independent in 2019?
So, no, those two properties paid for my divorce. Yeah,
Oof.
yeah. So I kind of had to start over and away. I did end up, I had purchased one more property in Montana. It was like just right after the new house had been built, so 2014, and I still own that property. It's a short-term rental now. I've done a cash out refinance on that one, have used the equity. Like Montana fared very well during the boom of COVID, housing prices. And, so that I used that to fund, more investments outside of Montana. And essentially, yeah, 2019, 2020 got super duper serious in wanting freedom in every way possible. And purchased, now I have 7 properties in my portfolio. So went from 3 to 1 to 7, in like a year and a half.
Wow.
Can you tell us a little bit about the mindset shift that has to happen there? Because you obviously had the tools, right? You dabbled in house hacking and then building a new house and buying other homes. So yeah, I mean, anybody could do that, right? But it took you this long to get to a place where you wanted to scale. So what changed for you?
Again, I think it was that like freedom piece. To be honest, felt super stuck, going through a divorce and being in the court system. And I didn't love the feeling of someone else being in control of like my finances and making decisions for me, which was essentially what was happening. And I'd always been like entrepreneurial and had gotten, had always wanted out of my W-2. So it was just kind of like a lot of things happening and me being like, you know what, it's now or never. Like I've analyzed 100 deals in Alabama. Like how many more times can I run this calculator? Like just do it, Megan. don't be a wussy, and yeah, just deciding like that I was going to trust myself and trust my decision-making process and go for it. So, yeah.
Okay, so this is your first adventure into out-of-state investing, it sounds like. And so why Alabama? How did you find it? And were these long-term rentals?
Yes. So I have 2 long-term rentals there. And I started looking at different markets where, I could buy a house for 100 to 150 grand. Obviously seeing prices in Colorado, it's very different in many parts there. So yeah, that was kind of my budget. And I, of course, went to Bigger Pockets, just started asking questions, reading other people's feedback, like figuring out where other people were investing. I had narrowed it down to 3 or 4 markets, most in the Southeast, and then started looking for, the team. So looking for agents that understood me as what I wanted as an investor. And between finding an agent that I trusted and a property management company that I liked that worked in Alabama, I was like, well, we're gonna go with Alabama. And started getting listings sent to me, and eventually, like I said, just decided like I'm gonna make this happen and put it in an offer, and what kind of happened one after the other pretty quickly.
That's super cool, and I love that you were able to actually like invest that. So I think that's like a pretty big hurdle for a lot of people. But why did you move to Colorado? Like if your home is Missoula, and then you want to invest in Alabama,
Yeah.
you just
Well,
wanted some Rocky Mountain.
yeah. So I actually grew up in South Carolina, and then moved to Seattle after college, and then traveled for like a year in South America. So like I said, Montana definitely wasn't like my home. I don't know if I necessarily feel that way about any particular place still, maybe Portugal one day. But Colorado, yeah, I wanted to stay out west and have great school systems and, all those sorts of things, looking for somewhere that was very family friendly and had accessibility to the outdoors. So it fit all those boxes, ticked all those boxes.
So I'm going to take a pause here and put in a little ad for everyone. If you guys don't know, I help people invest out of state. And so if you're looking to check out a new market or you're feeling priced out of where you live, which is really common, even for us in Colorado, I own in 5 states and love to help people figure out other places, other methods. So reach out to me and we can do a one-on-one session. You can also book at calendly.com/Zeona. All right, back to the show. So, what happens next? I want to know when you really focused on financial independence, because there is a little bit of a difference between saying, okay, I really like real estate. That worked well for me. I want to go back to it now that my divorce is over. But then there's another thing when you have the real estate FI math, where you're like, okay, if each house gives me $300, I need X amount of houses. Like, did you have that kind of focus?
Totally. Yeah. I would, it's hard to pinpoint exactly. And it kind of all happened at once when after buying that first out of state rental, and, like you do it once and then you're like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't so terrible. And actually, I love the fact that I've never seen those houses, much more than the fact that I used to live next to like 2 of my renters and, could be seen at any time of day leaving my house and ask questions and all that sort of stuff. So, So yeah, after the properties in Alabama cash flow really well, but like comparing them to, some of the Colorado market, as y'all well know, it's maybe more appreciation focused. So really trying to figure out how I could construct a portfolio where I did have that cash flow enough to allow me to become work optional and fire, but then something that would grow also. So that's why I kept my short-term rental in Montana. It does really, really well, cash flow wise and appreciation wise, actually. And then I have the 2 short terms in Alabama. 2 long terms in Alabama that do great cash flow wise, but not necessarily appreciation wise. And then 4 in Colorado that provide a little bit of both too. So I guess a roundabout way of answering your question is it just kind of happened as I was trying to piece my portfolio together and figuring out like how to play the mix of long term and short term and in a portfolio.
I love that you have that perspective. I feel like that's exactly how I looked at it too. Is I was buying in Colorado, and our whole team helps people buy in Colorado, and I always like to say that Colorado is great because you can really get cash flow and you get the appreciation, because like everyone in my properties in Colorado cash flows about $1,000 a month or more,
That's awesome.
and we're also getting like everyone knows what Colorado did in the past. The whole United States did crazy in the last couple of years, but like especially I feel like Colorado really blew up too. And then I've got like my North Carolina stuff as well, which is kind of similar to your Alabama, where it's like I bought these things never expecting $1 of appreciation. I was lucky and got some, but those are just kind of like the steady Eddie cash flows. And so I think that's a great way to build a portfolio.
Can we just take a moment to talk about never seeing a property? Have you still not seen those properties in Alabama?
Still
Isn't
not
that
seen
just
them.
delightful?
It really, really is. I do love it.
It's
Not gonna
funny
lie.
because I feel like that is really surprising to a lot of people. A lot of times when someone's going to buy out of state, they're like, well, at what point do I fly out there? And I'm like, well, if you're not furnishing it, if it's not a short-term rental, like never, I don't need, why, And just recently I was in Orlando at a conference and I was 2 hours away from some places I bought in 2019. And I was like, man, should I finally go up there? Should I go see these houses? I still haven't. It didn't happen. So it's kind of funny. You've seen them online, you online dated, and that's it. They're just your little homes.
Yeah, I'll
So
keep those
anyway, I just
beautiful
want people
pictures
to
in my
know.
mind and go with that.
Yeah, I want people to know that's possible because Craig has all these ones in North Carolina. I'm pretty sure you've never seen those either, right?
I think I've seen 2 of them, and then 4 of them I've never laid eyes on. I did a whole rehab and everything, and I honestly sometimes I forget the address. I mean, many times I don't even know the addresses, right? Like I think you get to a point where you're like you just have to look at your spreadsheet.
Love
But
it.
Megan, I want to talk a little bit about your kind of like your so we kind of understand how you built your passive income, right? And it was mostly through real estate. It wasn't the like index fund route. Do you have any like tips on saving? Because it sounds like you're a really big saver, you mentioned. And so, house hacking is the obvious one, but any other kind of tips and tricks you had?
Yeah, so another way that I feel like has been like an integral part in me enjoying my journey to FI has been travel hacking. So I've been a writer and editor in that space, like almost that entire time period we've been discussing, like that decade. And so I'm obsessed with travel hacking, travel rewards. Side hustle stuff, making extra money outside of my W-2. I feel like I've kind of done it all. But yeah, I've been able to like travel for almost free, and I feel like that's been a huge help in my savings. And yeah, just always hustled outside of my W-2, like being a freelancer and that sort of thing. And just being frugal to the point of probably being too much of a DIYer.
Yeah. Well, there's some merit to that, I think, too. Like, not everybody is looking to scale to become the next Grant Cardone and have $1 billion net worth, right? Like,
Yep,
if you truly don't want to worry about like managing contractors and doing all that, and you just think you can do it better yourself, like there's a certain formula for everybody, right?
totally.
And it's great that you got there, and you're still extremely young to be financially free or retired. And I don't think you would have got there that much quicker if you hired things out versus not. Um, but okay, travel hacking, we could do a whole episode on this.
Yeah.
But can you give us like the number one thing that we could do to travel hack, not including the obvious stuff? Like everyone knows about the like spend $5,000 in the first 3 months and get the 50,000 points, right? That's an easy one. But like, is there any like golden nugget that you got that like, yeah, you can just do this and then you get free flights?
If only life were that easy. It's like buying a rental property. Just do this and you'll have a
Yeah.
portfolio that cash flows you,
Yeah.
3 grand a month. Um, no, like most things, yeah, it is. It's a process. I mean, I would say one thing, especially for like real estate agents and people that do remodels, is just not to let any of those opportunities like pass you by, because I've made hundreds upon thousands and millions really of miles and points through my remodels. There are tricks like using a certain card to buy um, gift cards at office supply stores, which that you then take to Home Depot or Lowe's if you're like doing a kitchen remodel, and you end up literally with 500,000 points. Um, yeah, it's just kind of being aware of the ways you can maximize like spending in certain categories that are related to real estate. And yeah, I mean, I've done weird things like bought minted coins from the mint, and resold them for for sign up bonuses. So once you kind of get into the game, you realize there's this whole like subculture of people like finding out crazy ways. Like the guy who bought like chocolate pudding cups. There was some promotion and he ended up earning like 2 million points with chocolate pudding cups. I don't know, you can Google it, but weird stuff like
Oh
that
my
pops up
gosh.
all the time.
Yeah, yeah. It's definitely
Yeah.
it definitely sounds like a rabbit hole that you can fall very deep
Oh,
down.
yeah, it very much is. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, but something's better than nothing. That's my view. Even if you only save, $1,000, like whatever, it's $1,000. Put it in an index fund or towards your next down payment. It's a great way to
Yeah.
help save.
Love it. I want to talk a little bit about quitting to get to financial independence, because I think a lot of people think, well, you're only financially independent or fire or retired if you're not working at all. And I think what's really cool about being location independent, which is like really common for people now since COVID, is that you can actually just scale way back, right? So it doesn't have to mean that you've quit your job. You could just be working extremely part-time or even just part-time and have a much more free, flexible traveler lifestyle. So can you kind of tell us if you're still working or what kind of balance you've struck?
Yeah. Yeah. So I am working on my own thing. So I'm building up my work optional woman brand, but I am no longer, I switched to freelancing. Oh gosh, earlier last year and thought that I would kind of continue to do that after moving to Portugal just for tax purposes. You kind of have to be, and I came over here on a passive income visa. So um, it's tricky to actually like work while I'm here. And so, um, yeah, I think that the point you bring up is spot on in the sense that I figured out a way to cut back on a lot of my expenses by being location by the geo arbitrage essentially, and we'll see what like work looks like. I don't need to work, but I like to work on certain things. So I don't know where I'll end up, a year or five from now. But it's great to have options. That's for sure.
Yeah, and let's just define geo arbitrage for people if they haven't heard of that. So essentially, if I get it right here, it's about living somewhere cheaper but still earning money, maybe from a US currency, so that you're earning a really high wage, but now you get to spend it in a much cheaper place.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Right.
And I'm using the income from my rentals. Again, that's what qualified me for this particular visa. And there are, a number of things that are less expensive here. Healthcare is a huge one. The cost of childcare, things that would be sort of like, you know, um, kind of like too posh for me if I were living in the US
Mm.
in my
Yeah.
frugal mindset, but that I can
Yeah.
like integrate into my life here, which, just makes things easier and less expensive. So, yeah, it's harder with a kid in a lot of ways than hopping around if you're by yourself or a young couple or whatever, but you can make it happen.
So if someone's feeling inspired and they're thinking, wow, how do you get a passive income visa? Right? It's like if they want to look into that, can you give us a couple pointers of how to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Portugal was on the top of my list of places to move, basically because of this visa option. And it is a path to citizenship, which is another cool thing. One of my goals is to have EU citizenship just for ease of travel, and like my daughter can go to school for free and all those great things that come with, having multiple passports. But this particular visa is called the D7 visa. It was originally, I'm assuming, made for, like pensioners, retirees that are getting Social Security or pensions and that sort of thing. But a lot of younger people are using it now. If they can swing it, and having a real estate portfolio is an awesome way to be able to swing it. So yeah, it's the D7 visa. There's quite a bit of info out there. And it's really, it's a process. It's not like hard. It's a lot of paperwork and, making financial statements and proving that you meet these various requirements and funding a Portuguese bank account. And they just have requirements based on your family size and that sort of thing. So it's just kind of, again, another like checking the boxes and figuring out how to make it work. And you have to go in person to apply for the visa, and then it's a sit and wait. And yeah, just kind of a process like anything. But one that I think will have like huge returns in the end.
Okay, last
Awesome.
last question. I think last question here
Yeah.
that I'm super curious about is how is it traveling and kind of being so nomadic with your daughter, right? Because you don't really hear many people doing that with like as a single mom with
Yeah,
a daughter. So
yeah,
curious to hear about your experience there.
yeah. So she's a trooper because she has me as a mom. um, but I mean, I've been traveling with her since she was very small, and she has a lot of stamps in her passport already, and loves like loves to communicate. So I knew she'd be like really excited to like learn a new language and meet new people. And so, yeah, uh, it's, it's actually easier than traveling with like a group of friends where you all have to like, come to a decision together
Hmm.
because you just kind of pull your child along and they kind of have to go with it. But yeah, it is different than obviously being, like my backpacking days when it just looks different in the sense that like you can't do the same types of activities that I might be used to doing or wanting to do. But it's really cool because it's like a total learning experience for them. And of course, cliche, like you get to see the world through the eyes of a child. And like you really do, like everything is new and exciting. And I love, there's like a whole world schooling movement where, you teach your child through experience. Like you're like at the Colosseum and they're learning about Roman history versus like reading it in a book. And when I think
Yeah.
back to like how I grew up, I'm like, man, I wish my parents had done this for me. So I don't know, maybe I'm like reliving my childhood through my daughter, but I think it's pretty cool.
No, I love that. I love that. And I think you've got a point where it's like so much more fun to learn about the history by being there and experiencing it. And she'll actually hopefully remember it. But either way, like, she has such a unique childhood and is going to be exposed to so many different cultures that when she does get older, like, and she goes to college and starts meeting people from different cultures, like,
Yeah.
she's not going to be like surprised or taken off guard.
Yeah.
I was fairly sheltered as a kid, not like crazy, but I hadn't really traveled much or been out of the country much. And I remember that I grew up in Massachusetts and I went to school in Boston. And I met somebody from New Jersey, and I thought it was the coolest thing that they were from New Jersey.
Yeah.
And now I'm like looking back on it, I'm like, wow, I must have looked like such an idiot because like New Jersey's not even that far away.
Oh my
So,
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, maybe your daughter won't have that same
Yeah.
experience.
No, I think they have, I don't know, like 7 different nationalities in her class. Like she comes home and she's like, I know Russian. And I'm like, well, I don't think so, but you probably have like a friend from Russia.
Yeah, no, that's a
But it's
super. It's
true.
gonna be
That's
super
why I
super
love
cool.
traveling. I mean, yeah, it's like the lessons learned and like you can't I don't know. It just like teaches you a whole new side, like way of viewing people and the world and the way it works and being open to life and experiences.
Totally, totally. Awesome, Megan. Well, so you got anything else, or should we head into the final part of the show?
Yeah, I would say, Megan, if you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners, any last tips before we move to the second part?
Last tips. I would say just like if you have it's totally cheesy, like if you have a dream, just do it. Like take action, don't life goes by fast coming from someone who's no longer 25. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think just, practice makes perfect. Like if you're scared to do something, like just take the first step and I can almost guarantee you'll figure it out and be better for it in the end. So
Mm, love it.
Awesome.
All right, Z, are you ready for the
Final
final
four.
four?
The final four.
All right, Z, kick us off.
Yeah. So, Megan, what are you reading right now?
So, I'm into audiobooks nowadays. And I was looking at my Audible thing earlier, in preparation for this question. So the latest one is the 12-week year. And I've had a lot of friends recommend that to me, and trying to figure out, different ways to plan, while I grow my brand and that sort of thing. And yeah, it's it's great thus far. I love the sort of fresh new look on how to plan, getting shit done.
Great.
Love it. Yeah, 12 years is a good one. All right, Megan, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
The one I just gave that I just was repeating from all the other people that I've ever listened to say it is like take action. What is it? You can't learn to drive a parked car. something to that effect. Again, everything that I've learned, I've just learned by doing and moving forward.
Yeah, I love it.
Oh my gosh, you can't learn to drive a parked car. I really like that. I feel like
Yeah.
that like perfectly makes it because everybody talks about take action, and
Yeah.
that's like such a hard thing in real estate. But when you think of it that simply, you're like, oh yeah, okay, you're not going to
It's
get
like an
anywhere
easy
if you're not just
visualization
turning it
too, like someone that's just
Yeah.
sitting there going nowhere. Yeah.
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 Hitting the gas while it's still in
Yeah.
park and it's
Yeah.
not going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, number 3, what is your why?
My why is my daughter. I mean, just being able to spend time with her, while she's still young, I think that had a lot to do with me like speeding up my process and trying to figure out again how to make things happen more quickly. Because I'd gotten a lot of advice from other parents or older people that were like, it goes by fast, and before you know it, da 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 da. And just wanting to like have my time back to spend with her and I don't know, just enjoy life. Like there's one thing I've learned moving to Europe. It's like, wow, these people, I mean, this is a total generalization, but they do know how to enjoy life.
Yeah.
Kind of stepping out of the hustle culture is eye-opening.
Yeah.
They
I do
definitely,
love that
they definitely
about
have
Europe.
good. Yeah, they definitely have a good quote unquote balance, if it is a balance.
Yeah,
I feel like they do a lot more play than work, but
Yeah.
I guess balance is relative based on where your culture is.
totally. Yeah.
Okay, Megan, last kind of sort of question. What are some fun ways to answer everyday questions like how's it going or what do you do?
How's it going? Oh my goodness. And what do I do? 2 very, very complicated questions at any given point in any given week. I actually do love to answer people when I say, "Oh, I'm a real estate investor." I don't know why. I think I have like people don't, I guess I don't give off or appear very professional in a lot of ways. I'm never like dressed in a suit and it's just not my personality. So I think people don't expect that sort of answer from me. So I don't know, anything that kind of surprises them or like, oh, I travel like for my job, I write hotel reviews. I was just in Hawaii, like reviewing the Four Seasons. Yeah, that's the way I just like to surprise people. And for whatever reason, I've picked I guess, somewhat interesting path in life. And so the truth is enough of a surprise.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, especially if you kind of say, I mean, real estate investor is a surprise, but if you said you're retired or something like that, people would be like, what?
Yeah,
So,
exactly. That's still a little
yeah,
awkward for me to say, to be honest, especially to people that
yeah,
I don't know, because you do get blank looks, right? When you're like, oh, I own 5 houses in North Carolina or whatever. I mean, I'm sure y'all are used to it too. Like, it's
hmm
when people that aren't in that space, it is kind of like, huh? Like,
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a complicated subject for sure.
yeah.
Okay, Megan, well, where can people find out more about you if they wanted to hear more about your story or connect or all
Yeah.
those good things?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram and TikTok at Work Optional Woman. That is where I'm
Work
building
optional woman.
Work Optional
Is that
Woman.
wow?
Wow,
Do you call that wow?
I do.
Love it. Um, amazing. Okay, Megan, well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was a pleasure having you. It was really nice to hear about your story and kind of the trials and tribulations you went through, and now you're living it large in Portugal,
That's
but
right.
on a budget because you can live large cheaply in Portugal. So
Exactly.
I love that. And so yeah, so good talking to you, Megan. So good getting to know you, and we'll talk soon.
Yes. Thank you for having me. It was great.
Okay,
Bye.
bye bye now.
Bye.
And that was Meghan Hunter. Z, what'd you think of Megan?
I love stories like this because it just reminds me that I don't have to be working the grind. I don't have to worry about what things cost in the US and inflation. Like, there is a life outside where you're separate from all this. And I love financially independent people or FIRE movement people because they are focused more on enough and on quality of life and not so much the hustle or more is more. And I think in the real estate investing world, we get kind of stuck there. We get stuck on how many doors do we have? What's your net worth? How do you grow more and more? And I love the feeling of spaciousness and freedom. And so it's just really refreshing for me to hear a story like today.
Yeah, me too. Like I've been playing a lot with like balance over the past year and a half, and I think I've achieved a balance that I'm really happy with. But in those first 5 or so years, like it was grind, right? And like I feel like anybody with any semblance of success like did go through that. Like Megan, right? She went
Yeah.
through that. She did a whole rehab by herself, right? And so you can't avoid the grind for the first couple of years. But this is a good glimpse into what many of you guys' futures may look like. Think 10 years from your start date. And, she's kind of just like chilling in Portugal. She's growing a business that's really fulfilling to her. She's, her daughter is learning new languages every new week in school. And like, like that really toots her horn or whatever, floats her boat, whatever analogy you want to call it. And then like whatever, and that may not look good to you, right? Like, I feel like we're like now living quite the opposite life where we have a farm in northern Idaho, right? And like that makes us really happy. And so it's like really, really fun just to kind of hear these stories and hear the results of it.
Absolutely. I think there's so much richness in a slower life. So it is kind of funny that we call like money riches, but when you're chasing money, I don't think that you have enough time to really take a deep breath and enjoy what's around you. So anyway, it's this is my little like woo-woo guru coming out, but I'm just loving the reminder for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, it's okay. And we love when your woo-woo guru comes out. So as always.
Awesome.
Yeah. And we also love when you guys listening leave us a rating and review on iTunes. It really makes the podcast grow. Share this with your friends if you're inspired by Megan's story or anything that Z and I said. Share it, right? We want to get this word out. We really want to make people, just love on Fi. So again, guys, thanks for listening, and we'll see y'all next week.
That's it for this episode of Investify. We hope that these nuggets of real estate wisdom lead to more savvy financial planning and a clearer path towards financial freedom. For more content like this, subscribe to the show at investify.com. Don't forget to leave a rating and share it with your friends. Together, we can transform more real estate newbies into successful and clever investors. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next one.